Hawkeye. You know him, you love him. He's the world's greatest archer with a quiver full of trick arrows. He's been on both sides of the law and somehow manages to guzzle down more coffee than I do. He's also had a bit of an identity crisis though. Since his debut in 1964, Clint Barton has worked under a bunch of codenames, from Ronin to Goliath to even Captain America. And I'm not talking about alternate universes here. So as someone who has read way too many Hawkeye comics over the years, I'm here to break down every identity that Clint has ever taken up. So if you want to support my caffeine addiction, then stick around, and maybe consider subscribing to help us get that much closer to 400,000 subscribers. I can practically taste it. And speaking of taste, I need to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Athletic Greens. Now that I'm getting older, I'm starting to take my health a lot more seriously, and Athletic Greens has been seriously helping me get everything I need and more. In just one convenient serving, you get 75 vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and adaptogens for easy energy, recovery, focus, and gut health. Just one scoop, a bit of water, then you just shake it up. That's it. Normally, I need a second or third cup of coffee in the morning to really wake me up, but now I'm down to just one cup, which is most likely coming from the alpha-liptic acid. Don't believe me? Then try it out for yourself by clicking the link below, and with your first purchase, you'll get 5 travel packs for free, in addition to a year's supply of their vitamin D3K2 oil. Just one drop in your mouth, on food, or in a beverage, and you're improving your heart, vascular system, immune system, and respiratory system. Honestly, I didn't buy into all of this at first, and I almost didn't take the sponsorship. But after watching several non-sponsored reviews of Athletic Greens, looking into the ingredients, and trying it for myself, I'm on board. So again, click the link in the description and give it a go for yourself. Obviously, the first identity that Barton took up was Hawkeye. When Clint and his brother Barney ran away from home, they joined the circus, where Clint became an expert marksman, earning him the nickname Hawkeye from his mentor, Jacques Duquesne. One day during a performance though, Iron Man was fighting crime nearby, and his audience turned their focus to him instead of Clint's show. Jealous of the attention that Iron Man received, Barton decided that he would become a crime fighter himself, so he created a costume and a bunch of trick arrows which he used to become Hawkeye. On his first night out, however, Clint stopped a jewel thief, but the police thought that it was actually him that was the robber. Because of this misunderstanding, Hawkeye ran, causing him to bump into Black Widow, who took in Clint and convinced him to join her in a life of crime as an Iron Man villain. That is, until he wanted to turn over a new leaf, join the Avengers, and the rest is history. Yet, even though Hawkeye is the most iconic role that Clint has ever used, it's far from the only one. A few years later after joining the Avengers, Barton's teammate Hank Pym was suffering from schizophrenia for a multitude of reasons, but constantly growing in size certainly wasn't helping. In an attempt to keep things under control, Hank retired from his identity of Goliath and locked up the costume along with a new and improved growth serum. At that very moment though, the Avengers got word that Black Widow was taken prisoner, and because of their romantic past, the rest of the team ordered Clint to stay behind because they were worried that his feelings might get in the way of their mission. Of course, though, that wasn't going to happen. And good thing, too, because it turns out the Avengers were actually tricked. Barton was able to deduce where Black Widow was actually being held, so he stole the Goliath costume and serum to save the day, which he did. Having proved his worth, Clint wanted to keep the mantle of Goliath for himself, especially since he already felt useless on the team when he broke his bow on an earlier mission. Thankfully, Hank gave Clint his blessing, and Barton acted as Goliath for a few years. But even these actual superpowers weren't enough to fully help Clint out with his identity crisis, as he felt helpless without the serum. Frustrated, Barton smashed what he had left of the serum and went right on back to being Hawkeye, albeit with a new and short-lived costume. Honestly, thank God he abandoned that one because not a good look. Now, normally I wouldn't include one-off disguises like this, but there's actually a lot of interesting stuff here. So when the Watergate scandal was happening, a Captain America storyline heavily implied that President Richard Nixon was the supreme leader of a terrorist organization. By the way, it was only implied because Marvel forced the book's writer to tone it down a little. Anyway, after seeing that the United States no longer lined up with its ideals, Steve Rogers quit as Captain America. But Hawkeye thought that was a mistake and created a villainous persona, the Golden Archer, to torment Steve into becoming a hero once again. If not as Captain America, then as something new, prompting him to take up the identity of Nomad. This would be the first time that Hawkeye impersonated an already established villain, which would later on become a trend. But Golden Archer has a bit of a bonkers history that I really want to talk about. Okay, so there's an alternate universe in Marvel Comics that has a stand-in for the Justice League called the Squadron Supreme. Well, one of their members was a pastiche of Green Arrow, who was also named Hawkeye. Well, in a storyline where the squadron came over to the main Marvel universe, this Hawkeye decided to take up the name and costume of Golden Archer that Clint had come up with to both differentiate himself and also make fun of Barton. Now, ordinarily, that doesn't seem like a funny joke, but there's a deeper layer to this. See, this guy's name is Wyatt McDonald, and the fast food chain McDonald's is famous for their golden arches. It's a really subtle joke, but it has to be the only explanation for all of this, because Clint's Golden Archer persona was like a thing for one issue, and the Squadron Supreme not only found out about this short-lived thing, but they also found out about it from an alternate universe. That makes no sense. Moving on, Hawkeye was assigned to help out on Earth during an intergalactic war between the Kree and Shi'ar empires, because Captain America didn't think that he had enough raw power to join the teams out in space. Well, Clint was furious about this, and Hank Pym, agreeing that that wasn't fair, gave Barton some of his growth serum, allowing him to take up the identity of Goliath once again, which gave him the strength to qualify for the mission. After the day was saved, Clint was confused about which identity he should keep, settling back on Hawkeye, which was probably good for marketing, since Marvel also had been publishing other stuff where Barton was Hawkeye, including the Marvel swimsuit special. Dedicated video right here. Fast forwarding many years, Hawkeye was killed on an alien spaceship that was both summoned and blown up by the Scarlet Witch when she was having a mental breakdown. But because of further reality warping shenanigans that I absolutely do not have time to explain in this video, he was brought back to life. Well, when Barton found out about the superhuman civil war that happened while he was dead and how it led to the death of Captain America, Clint confronted Iron Man about his part in it. But Tony was all like,
"Alright, that's fair, but hear me out. How would you like to be Captain America?"
Wait, what?
Right, so there's this girl named Kate Bishop that's been running all across town calling herself Hawkeye. And I know that you're pretty good at aiming stuff. So, take a look at this. I found it on Steve's dead body. Do you want to throw it around?
Dude, no.
Come on.
I said no.
Come on, you can even wear the costume.
Fine, whatever. So, after playing around with the shield for a little bit, Stark was able to convince Clint to take the costume out for a spin, during which they ran into Kate and Patriot, who scolded Barton about how disrespectful it was for him to try and be the next Captain America. This, combined with seeing how harsh Tony was on these unregistered teen heroes, was enough for Barton to pass up on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But as an additional screw you to Tony Stark, Barton joined the New Avengers, a rebel group of unregistered heroes, but he was adamant about not being Hawkeye anymore, so he took up the mantle of Ronin, an identity left behind by Echo. After the New Avengers rescued Echo from Japan, she let Clint keep the Ronin persona, which she used until Captain America came back to life, which caused the entire superhero community to make amends with one another, and start a brand new team of Avengers, which Barton was a member of. And he decided to have a fresh start by becoming Hawkeye once again, something that Spider-Man instantly joked about. Ronin and Captain America are both identities that a truly absurd amount of people have taken up over the years, which is why I've done deep dives on both of them. So it's really fitting that as a hero with a truly ludicrous amount of changes, Hawkeye got to be both. Years later, Clint took down a bad guy called the Hood, but the court didn't properly convict him. Outraged, Barton took up the identity of Ronin once again so that he could get violent revenge on the Hood that he normally couldn't get as Hawkeye. The only issue, though, is that Clint is very well known to have been Ronin in the past and would have been one of the first suspects, so he covered his tracks by stealing a time machine and used it to prove that he was in different places as Ronin, even fighting himself at one point to prove his innocence. As Ronin, Barton stole money directly from the Hood's operations and donated them to charitable causes. But because of his brutality, many members of the superhero community wanted to take him down, and they recruited Hawkeye as a part of it. They recruited him to take out himself. This leads to a really fun sequence of events where Barton's time machine got broken and he has to find other solutions for being at two places at once, like having a Skrull impersonate him and using a life model decoy. Well, the Hood hired an assassin, Bullseye, to take Clint down, and he killed the Skrull for information about what was going on. And just to fuck with him, Bullseye stole the Ronin costume and started straight up killing people in it. Well, to make things more convoluted, Hawkeye put on Bullseye's costume so that he could go after him and maybe kill Bullseye for what he did. Unfortunately, though, Clint spared him. At the time of this recording, that is every identity that Hawkeye has ever taken on, but knowing his insane history, I would not be surprised to see 1, 3, or 5 personas in the future. But hey, if you enjoy deep dives like this, then I mentioned that I did videos on everyone who has ever been Captain America and everyone who has ever been Ronin, so consider giving those a watch. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.